pretty versatile bike. I don't know, the jury's out for me on this. I'm not really sure what to say about it. Alright everybody, what is up? What is up? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. We are out here at Brandywine Harley-Davidson in Chadds-Ford, Pennsylvania, and I am excited for this one. Today we're taking a look at the 975 Nightster Special that Harley recently came out with. As you guys know, Harley recently did their redesign, a little bit of their redesign to the Sportster lineup. Of course, we've got my traditional Sportster right here, the Iron 1200, and right here we've got the Revolution Max 975 Nightster Special. So I've been wanting to get on this bike for a while now, and thanks to Brandywine Harley-Davidson over there, they're giving me the opportunity to take this bike out. What I want to do is a little bit of a comparison of what we have here with what we now know as the Revolution Max Sportster, and also take a look at my Iron 1200 here, what we have always known as the traditional Evo air-cooled Sportster. So we are going to take a look at both of these here, some of the differences, some of the changes, some of the similarities, and then we'll go ahead and hop on the 975 variation here, the Nightster Special, take that for a ride, finally get some of my thoughts and opinions on this particular bike. So one of the things about this bike that you guys know, Harley released this, I believe, going on 2 years ago now, and then just most recently they added the special variation to the lineup. But when I say what happened to this motorcycle, what I'm talking about is, do you guys really see this bike out there in the wild anywhere? I think it's a pretty cool bike. I think it's a pretty cool option, pretty cool path forward for Harley to move into, but does everybody else think that way? Because I don't see these out in the wild anywhere. I've seen a few on showroom floors. I don't know how much these things really sell. Does anybody like them? And that's what I mean by what happened to this bike. There was a huge launch, huge hype behind it, huge release to this bike. Is anybody buying these things? Where do you guys see them? Do you see them out on the road anywhere? I have seen some of the Sportster S out on the road actually, but I can honestly say I don't know that I've ever seen one of these out on the road. So that's what I mean by what happened to this bike. Did this release fall flat on its face? Do you guys like this bike? If you've had a chance to ride this motorcycle, let me know what you guys think about it. Drop it down in the comments. Love to hear your feedback on the Nightster 975. So first off, I know there was a lot to be made about this bike when it was first released. Some of the cool things that I think Harley did here was, I think they did a pretty decent job at being able to keep the silhouette of the Sportster, because if you look kind of at the lines of the 975 and you take a look at my air-cooled Iron 1200, I think they did a really good job of trying to keep that shape of somewhat of a similar style peanut tank here, even though we know this is actually not the gas tank, it's the air box for the Revolution Max engine. But as far as the overall look and feel, we'll give you kind of a wide angle of the two bikes here. I think they did a pretty good job, as well as they could really, of keeping the traditional look of the Sportster. Obviously when you start to modernize a bike, the look and feel and everything is going to change on that. But I think as far as the silhouette and the lines, the style, kind of the vibe of the bike, I think they did a pretty good job of being able to maintain that as much as they could. Some other similarities that I think they were kind of able to keep, again, kind of like with the wheel and tire size looks very similar. The rider triangle here, you know, you've got kind of those mid-mounted pegs, somewhat of a low mid-bend bar. Of course, that depends on what variation of the Sportster you have here. I've got the Mini Apes on the Iron 1200, but again, just kind of going back to that overall look and feel silhouette of the bike. You've got the exposed rear shocks on both bikes here. That is remaining similar. But almost from there, that's where I would say a lot of the similarities start to stop. Obviously, when we look at one of the biggest differences, one of the biggest kind of things that were hyped up on this bike is the Revolution Max engine that Harley started with the Pan America. You've got it in the Sportster S 1250. Now you've got it in the 975 variation. Their new, modernized, liquid-cooled engine in comparison to the air-cooled V-twin of the Evo engine here, the 1200cc that's in the Iron 1200. Of course, you've got the 883 in those models, but obviously the power plant being one of the huge differences between the bikes. Next up, when you think about the differences, when you look at how Harley kind of modernized the bike a little bit, a lot more going on as far as technology. So of course the Nightster Special has the TFT display screen here. You've got adjustable levers here. And you've got all your buttons here that are going to control your dash. You've got rider modes. So that's kind of Harley really taking this bike into the modern age when you compare it over here to my Iron 1200. Typical standard Harley controls over here. Very simple speedometer. Not a whole lot going on with your technology of the bike. Other differences, of course, too, over here on your 975 Nitzer, you're going to have the gas tank underneath the seat. You're going to have to pop that up. Of course, the tank here, kind of like a little bit of a faux tank, where this ends up being your air box. So with Harley being able to modernize the bike here, of course, we're going to be able to put out more power with the Revolution Max engine. I believe this has about 90 horsepower and 70 foot-pounds of torque, where when you're looking at the old Evo Sportster over here, you're looking at maybe 60 horsepower, 65 foot-pounds of torque, maybe, if we're lucky. Another difference that you're going to have here between these two bikes is you're going to have the big old clunky Evo Sportster here weighing about, I believe it's 560 pounds. With your Nitzer here, you're going to shed some weight over here at about 480 pounds. Like I said, if you guys have any experience with the Revolution Max 975 Nitzer Special, or just the regular Nitzer, if you guys have had a chance to get on it, drop your comments or feedback down there. We're going to hop on this thing, give you a little bit of my experience on what I think about the actual ride. Alrighty, so let's go ahead, get ready to hop on. I expect the feel or the riding position is going to be very similar to what I'm used to. I'm definitely not used to all these controls and things here, not used to starting this thing up, so I believe that's going to get us on here. TFT display and screen is going to come up. Alright, so I believe this push-over button is going to start us up. Alrighty, so right off the bat, like I said, like I expected, the riding position feels pretty good, very familiar, just kind of like you would probably be on like an Iron 883, not necessarily my 1200 with the bars up here, but probably more so where you would be with the Iron 883 and some of your other traditional Sportster models. The foot pegs feel in a good position, and also the seat feels pretty decent. You're kind of planted in there. There's not much of a lip on the back, but you definitely are kind of like firm and planted with the angle that you're sitting at. It feels pretty good when you hit the throttle. All right, so this will be a good part to kind of move into a little bit of like the handling, because there's got some little winds and turns up here. So, you know, you're going to be tight into this bike with your legs, unlike some of the other Sportsters and Harleys out there, which I think really does kind of help for the handling, helps you kind of throw the bike around. And that's one of the things I can already tell with this is like you already can tell you definitely this bike engine wants to be up in the higher RPMs a little bit to kind of get that kick and get moving. Suspension has felt pretty good so far. I think they've got that kind of like really locked down on this bike much better than the traditional Evo Sportster with whatever new suspension they're working on there. But it feels pretty good, pretty cushy. You can tell it's responsive when you kind of hit into some of these turns here. The bike does feel firm and planted, even though it's lighter than an air-cooled Sportster, which gives you pretty good confidence. One thing I will say, and I hate that I kind of am going to say this or have to say this, but the engine, this Revolution Max, I don't know, it just feels like it's good. Don't get me wrong, like it's torquey, it's powerful, having fun with it, but just maybe it's just kind of the sound. Like, I don't know, it just feels kind of like a little chintzy and cheap. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you know, we're just so used to kind of like the Evo and the Milwaukee 8 putting out like just a bunch of like good clunky sounds and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, this just is so refined, it just feels kind of weird, you know. But I mean, it's good in a good way. I don't know how to explain it. One of the things that I think really helps this bike with handling is the fact that the gas tank is underneath the seat. It's a really well balanced experience so far. Through some of these turns, you can really kind of just duck and dive, throw it in there to these turns as you need to. Let's see how it opens up here. See now, yeah, that was fun. I take back what I said, it doesn't feel cheap and chintzy anymore. You really got to get the thing up into the higher RPMs to really experience that horsepower and torque, and where you start to feel good and comfortable and fun with this engine. I'll be honest with you, I should have asked before I left. I'm a little confused. I keep hitting the modes, but I don't know what mode I'm in right now. I should have asked him before I left. I keep hitting it right there, and it doesn't seem to be changing at all. I know usually you have to let off the throttle, hit the button, and it changes, but I'm not entirely sure what I have going on here. Definitely a nice smooth takeoff there. You can feel it starting to wind up. It definitely wants to get up and go in those higher RPMs. There we go. Definitely just something to kind of get used to with this new Revolution Max engine. Obviously the air-cooleds of the Evo and the Milwaukee 8, not having to rev those up as high, just something to kind of get used to as you get on these different bikes. They start to modernize some of these engines. So overall, a pretty good riding experience so far, but again, it takes me back to my point of I don't really know how this bike was perceived within riders and the Harley community and stuff like that, because you just don't see them out on the road a lot. I really don't know what the sales have been like of these. I know there was like a lot of hype around them when it was first released. Harley did the big press release launches, all the press rides and everything, and I think a lot of people had a lot of fun riding them, a lot of good things to say about them, but I just don't think you see a lot of people buying this bike, and you don't see it out there in the wild. I mean, I'm having a good time on it so far. Very enjoyable bike, very enjoyable ride, very smooth and comfortable ride, very well balanced, good riding position. You know, I don't know that it's a bike you're going to take out on a bunch of like long distance traveling or camping. I mean, of course you could, obviously you can do that on any bike, but I just don't think it's necessarily a bike for that. I would actually like to ride this around town in the city, back in Philly where I'm from, and really kind of get a look at how it handles in a more urban area, because I think that's where it would really excel. You know, light, agile, nimble. It'd be a lot of fun to ride around the city, but I'm having a good time here on a lot of these country back roads and stuff too. So pretty versatile bike. I don't know, the jury's out for me on this. I'm not really sure what to say about it. So we are almost back at Brandywine Harley-Davidson. Now we're gonna pull back up next to my old Sportster, take one last look at these. But yeah, I don't know, the jury's out on this. I wanted to like it a lot more than I did. Maybe it's for somebody else. You know, we're not gonna like every bike we hop on, but I'm glad I finally got a chance to test this out. Like I said, I will say pros, very light and nimble, good power to weight ratio. Things will wind up, really kind of kick your butt up into those higher RPMs, which is fun. Very light and nimble to throw around, very well balanced. The technology is cool behind it, the screen and everything. Nice bright big numbers, very comfortable riding position. I would say some of the downsides as we pull back in here, some of the downsides for me is just kind of like the look and feel and sound of the engine, just kind of not for me, I don't think. I think I liked the 1250 Sportster S a little bit better. Alrighty guys, so there you have it. One last look at the 975 Revolution Max Nightster Special here. Pretty cool, fun ride on that. Like I said, very well balanced, light, nimble, good braking, good power to weight ratio. I don't know, something for me just didn't click with it, but I've ridden other bikes that also kind of felt the same way. I think it looks pretty cool. I think there definitely is a niche market out there for somebody that's gonna like and love this bike. Like I said, just not particularly for me, which I'm kind of surprised about. I thought I was going to love it because I really had a good time on the 1250 Sportster S. But like I said, not every bike is for every person here. If I'm sticking with my Sportster, it'll be my Iron 1200 right here. Loud, clunky, old school Evo engine. That's the route that I'll stick with that. And then of course my Milwaukee 8 Street Bob. So that was a quick look comparing these two bikes, quick ride on this one, just some quick thoughts and opinions there. If you have any questions on this bike that I did not answer, feel free to go ahead and drop those down in the comments. And again, if you guys have any experience with the 975 Revolution Max Nightster, be sure to let me know some of your thoughts, opinions, and experience on that. But like I said, that will wrap us up for now. As always, make sure you guys go ahead and check out Brandywine Harley-Davidson. Take a look at them out here in Chadds Ford. They're actually going to be combining with their other location in Media to form one really huge, large location out here in the Chadds Ford, Garnett Valley area. So I'm sure we'll have some updates coming for them on that. But as always, make sure you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys ride safe out there. It's the Moto John. We'll see y'all on down the road. Peace.